I've always found a lot of inspiration where going to the origin of certain processes or of certain histories. And so I'm always very curious, very interested to know about the roots, because somehow it develops an understanding that's much deeper. Early on in our career, we went to the quarries and we saw very directly how stone was extracted. But it was highly inspirational. To see not only the stone, but the landscape, the tools, the methods. It's become already a way of operating, a way in which we learned, where we kind of dig into things as deep as we can. And that gives us very deep knowledge, that then also gives us a lot of freedom.
And all our professional lives, we have been fascinated and dedicated to the research of this origin of things. In architecture, the base of everything comes from the earth, the quarries, the sources of the material. We want to remain close to the earth and very in contact with this starting point. Every avant-garde piece contains all the history of architecture in it. In the material world, this history is carved out, is present, is physic. And this is very inspiring. And I learned this from my father. In the conversations with my father, we jumped from architecture to music because the themes, the topics were identical. When we were discussing about the origin of art and how every music piece contains all the history of music in itself, or any architecture has all that legacy, all that weight, all that time embedded on it. This is a very important way to understand creativity, and our mission in today's avant-garde has to be sustained by all the past, all the way to the origin.
here you have like the pandemic effect, where we are not in the lab. We cannot work with concrete, bigger models that we are usually used to. But then suddenly working with lighter, easier materials has certainly increased productivity. But then at the same time, we are testing what this means in terms of what technology is this built with. And we just built a project that we call the tent in Galicia, very close to the truffle, where we are defining what this thinner version of the truffle of structures of landscape means. These structures that are more textile in their conception.
When we do models, these models is for us, it's like our breakfast. You know, we do it every morning, not because you need it, because it's part of your self, you know? And we do models, and if you come in 3 weeks, you might not see any of these because, unfortunately, we have to refresh them because if not, they take all our place, no? But it's a constant doing. We don't need a client to produce architecture. We don't need a client to generate new things, new statements, to get ready, you know? Of course, things will occur, but you have to be ready. We take a look of one and say, okay, well, this would be amazing if it was something I could build in this place. It would be completely different, but we do remember the motions that drove us to do these spaces, to do these constructions.
Yeah, and also I think what things that we discovered with the truffle and with the structures of landscape is that when you lose some of the references on architecture, especially styles of architecture, and you're not trapped on a certain style and therefore taste, you are much more free to work with the important aspects of architecture. In this sense, these architectures that we are working with, you know, they don't fit style of architecture. I think we don't have the reference map to say if this is ugly or beautiful, right? Like, I don't know, it's a mountain or stone, is it ugly or beautiful? I don't know. With the styles of architecture, there's so much written, said, elaborated, that you sometimes are very much trapped on that.
During the pandemic, we built the tent, and we were exploring this matter to data transfer, almost working with our hands and using digital tools to transfer all that data to other hands. And we had the necessity to practice that architecture. So we were in Boston, we did a model live. Javier, Borja, and the team were building here. We were connected through the Atlantic, both separated teams. And even though we were not hands-on, like we were in the truffle, you know, casting, we were in the data side. And that was an amazing experiment that we had also the desire to develop. No? And we used the confinement moment, you know, the pandemic, that moment that we were isolated in the United States, all our people was here, to even build a tent and use that opportunity to, you know, to create this matter and data connection.
The tent was a project that Antón and Deborah did this model with a box in Boston, and Javier and I, we were in 𝘵𝘂, in Galicia. They did a model exactly like this one, and we 3D scanned this model. With the digital file, we replicated the model. We scale it up, the model, which is matter, taking that information to data, and in this case, we went further and we took again that information to matter. We were building it, we were placing a computer, you know, so they also could be part of the construction process, and they were always making comments.
We will explore how to enclose these very informal overtures and how to create this envelope, part solid, part translucent, even transparent, in a fully organic figure. It's going to be crafted manually, of course. Concrete is a very noble material. It allows you to do all kinds of tricks and tortuous forms. The need to explore the immediacy, the automatic, the unconscious expression of architecture, something that it exists in other arts, painting or sculpture or music even. In architecture, it's a very slow art. There's no space for improvisation. There's no space for uncertainty. There's no space for accidental moments. This materiality is just the result of projecting concrete, that is stone, liquid stone, into a canvas. Like Jackson Pollock projected spitted paint into a canvas, we did the same against a wrinkled vertical canvas. This is the result. It's a beautiful, expressive concrete canvas. It has broken the Euclidean imposition, the dogma of the geometry. Became an architecture project in 2 weeks. We practiced this with the paper models in our office. We did hundreds of them. The rest is just rehearsing, is practicing. It's like music. The real truth is when you get with the full orchestra, and that instant, that moment of truth is what makes the music extraordinary. We wanted this in architecture. We wanted, after months and months of rehearsing, the immediacy and the action of the event to occur live. And all this process, like in any geological process, transforms very liquid fluid into very material solid form that becomes a structural and part of the architecture of the earth. Gravity, weight, all these forces and energies that are, part of our universe interacting, were part of the design. We couldn't control everything that was going on. The weight of this canvas versus this, how these figures were bending, until there's a moment that they just consolidate. They just get the stiffness of the structure and become a timeless figure. In a space like this, you never know where are the limits of the interior and the exterior. It has such a powerful, embracing power that the interior and the exterior blurs. But our comfort, when we transform this into a home, requires, a certain difference where you get wet, where you can be blown with the wind, and the insects can come or not. Here, after the structure has already created the beat of the project, might have to transform these scratches, these strokes into, a light structure that cuts all this together again with some fiberglass casted system. Also, this would be a beautiful window. This is also a visual metaphor of the waves. This connects with the waves that are so present all the time in the tree. So these waves of concrete, like cover you and embrace you. So there's always this metaphysical connection with nature. In this case, these waves is not only printed in this cushion-like wall, it has also the form of the structure, jumping from one side to another. And they're just petrified in that instant of colliding to each other. And after the truffle represented the weight, the thickness, the viscosity. The tent is a light structure. It's already sprayed. It has a thin shell. It's moldable. The next level of immateriality of the activities of the earth is the experiments that we're doing now in 𝘠𝘠𝘮𝘮 𝘠𝘓𝑒, where we're doing this material research of how to create stones with structural consistency of a couple of millimeters of thickness, just crushing different materialities in a fiberglass infused resin composite that is also translucent, but it's still mineral, it's still earthy. It has all these beautiful, abstract expression of matter. And now we're driving from Fábrica. 𝘠𝘠𝘮𝘮 𝘠𝘠𝑒 is our lab where 𝘠𝘠𝑒 and 𝘠𝘠𝘍 studies the systems, the prototypes, the material research that cannot be done in a conventional office. We will see in Fábrica full-scale prototypes, big-scale models, material tests, components, and also the Fábrica itself, that is a prototype. So all these different scales of our work is what we capture and what we contain in Fábrica. And we will also unfold a very low carbon, low weight, almost infinitesimal concrete where we can capture all the materiality and expressiveness of a cementitious mix that we have engineered over a highly sophisticated composite of resin and fiberglass that gives all the expressiveness to the skin of a mineral concrete or stone wall, but with certain translucent properties. So this synthetic material that we have priorly produced, we're going to unfold it to see how it works. Before we had Fábrica as active labs and workshop areas, we used to do all this in our backyard at home. That was also totally fun because Deborah and myself and sometimes the kids and our collaborators were totally engaged in this playful, almost trance performative event. But it was really messy in our backyard to do all this, so we had the need to have these spaces where we could work materially with big prototype scale.
So welcome to 𝘠𝘠𝘮𝘮 Fábrica. This is our playground. And here you will see how our small model room has grown into a big space where we can really let creativity go crazy, go wild. This actually, what we are seeing are the initial tests and prototypes for Petrified River, some failures and incredible discoveries also.
We even have a full-scale prototype of an affordable housing unit, our 𝘠𝘍 suite system. That's a full little part of a building with its own foundation. It's a pre-assembled, off-site, industrialized, affordable housing system.
This is the most basic unit, which is a studio typology. And based on this unit, there are variations of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, even office spaces using the same kind of Lego kit. So all of these Lego parts can come together following, of course, some rules of the game, but to hopefully create diversity. I mean, this is the challenge, how with the same kit of parts you can actually build multiple buildings.
So our journey in architecture is towards a natural expression of materiality, a natural expressionism that enhances the gravitas, the presence of the forces and energies that are determining the quality of the space. The force of gravity, but without the mass. That's why we have been subtracting the weight of the material from these very heavy beams to the lighter beams in the Cyclopean house, to the ultralight, almost crystalline beams that we are developing now, that today we expressed that sheet of paper that contained all the expressive materiality, but in a ultralight condition that was able even to translucent. So there's a journey that connects us to the Earth through its gravitas, through its geology, but that also subtracts part of the mass towards the ultimate lightness and levity. I think this place discovered us. We were just ready to receive it. But we were not chasing a place like this. We were not looking for an abandoned quarry to take over and domesticate. All our personal and professional life has been connected to quarries. From Santiago Compostela, Salvaterra, Dominio, Salceda de Caselas quarries, where we did our first works. Reconnecting with Montana. That's not a quarry, but it's a mountain. It's the source of all the geology that is embedded in our architecture. We have been always spending our summertime in Galicia, in Northwest, in the Truffle, in the Atlantic. And this was the first time that we came to Menorca, and we just crashed into Canterra and totally fell in love with it.
This space, it's very powerful, and it definitely connects with our sensibility, with our work, but I think it connects with our roots as human beings. And for us, it's also, it has continuity, of course, with our work, but it's not something that we were looking for, or that it was like an obvious next step for us. But there's something there about, you know, these places like the Truffle also, or the project in Montana for Tippet rice, that has to do with the very essence of inhabitation and shelter and being in nature and with the landscape. And this is something that we are definitely committed to exploring and to living, because we love to actually be here, experience it. And
I'm going to take ownership of the whole existence of Canterra and the Menorca house, because if it wasn't for me, it wouldn't exist. Because we always used to go to Galicia, and even though the food and the house and everything was amazing, I wanted to go somewhere warm. where I could swim in the sea without freezing. I told my siblings, okay, let's convince Dad to go somewhere warm. And so we told him, okay, let's go to the Mediterranean. And so we ended up choosing Menorca, and we did a 1-week boat tour of the island. And while we were all, swimming in the sea and enjoying the warm weather, my dad was on his phone checking property on Zillow. He stumbled across the quarry, 𝘐𝘮𝘮. And he was like, oh my God, 𝘠𝘮, look at this. This is amazing. We have to go see this. Then later on another trip, and my dad and I went.
I saw this listing of this wall, and this guy was telling me there was nothing behind that wall. But I saw there was a door, so I asked him, what's behind that door? He said, well, there's kind of this space. Forget about it, it's blocked, it's walled. You can always store your equipment for farming or whatever there. And I continue asking, but what's the height? So, about 5 meters. Oof. And the depth. Well, it could be pretty big, but forget about it. Don't worry. It's blocked. There's no problem. I couldn't wait, and I took a plane and I went to Menorca. I was with Antón. He was 15 years old.
When we got there, it was super hard because it looked abandoned. There was tall grass and the trees were falling. It was super dark. And I kept telling my dad, Dad, we have to get out of here. And there's zombies in here, definitely. And I was super scared.
We were pretty much opening that door, and suddenly, like hundreds of pigeons, like in a horror movie, And everything was dark, stinky. Antón was freaking out. He said, "This is the kind of space that zombies are gonna come now." It was really a horrible space. And suddenly, I realized that it was a marvel.
And my dad was amazed. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen in my life. He was, oh my God, look at this. It's already there. It's already there. We don't have to do anything to it. It's already done. And as we kept going through 𝘐𝘮𝘮, it seemed like it had no end. I think my dad was scared too, because we went to 𝘐𝘮𝘮, we then left 5 minutes later, and we went to a hardware store and we grabbed one of these big lights. And it was like an expedition into the unknown. And we kept going and kept going, and we kept discovering that only happened because my siblings and I, but mainly I, wanted a warm vacation,
The discovery was an intuitive, emotional journey that drove, firstly, myself from the United States to Menorca to visit the place and feel the place that I had been hearing or seeing in some images. It was like an act of love. I suddenly got totally enamored, and immediately I called Deborah and said, you have to come, you have to see this.
He came to me and he said, oh, Deborah, I found this incredible place you have to come and see, And this is not a one-off. Maybe he comes with this every couple of months, So I always measure the temperature and the level of excitement. In this case, it was extreme excitement.
She immediately came. There was a total agreement. We knew this was part of us already.
I remember it was 25th of December. I was having Christmas lunch with my family, and Antón called me and told me, Borja, I need you, Deborah, and Javier to come to Menorca to visit a place. Because I love it, and I'm not sure if I'm crazy, or if it's worth it, and we should commit and buy it.
Sé que Antón nos comentó su idea de adquirir pues esa cantera. Al principio, pues como todas las cosas que dicen todo, pues te quedas un poco una cantera ahora, nuevo proyecto, ¿no? Pero claro, quería saber nuestra opinión. Yo dije, bueno, pero era el día de Navidad. Digo, bueno, pues venga, pues terminamos de comer en Navidad y esa misma tarde cogimos un vuelo y nos fuimos a Menorca. Y entre tanto, además, él me pidió, dice, oye, tráete un 𝘫𝘰𝘭𝘶 porque quiero hacer un levantamiento topográfico de la cueva, de la cantera. Claro, pues pensando, localizando cómo llevar un 𝘫𝘰𝘭𝘶, alquilarlo a alguien para poder llevarlo y aprovechar ese viaje para... Y el día 25, a las 4 de la tarde o las 6 de la tarde, cogimos todos un vuelo, después de la comida de Navidad, cogimos un vuelo y nos fuimos a Menorca y fuimos a la cantera al día siguiente y ahí estuvimos haciendo el 𝘫𝘰𝘭𝘶 de todos los espacios ese día y regresamos para ya tomar una determinación de si adquirir eso, no adquirirlo, qué posibilidades tenía el espacio.
Remember that day, we loved it. We all agreed. And we all asked, what do we want this for? Nobody knew. It's so marvelous, so beautiful. Let's take care of it and just get it back to where it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, it was that open space that was part of a mine. And it's not a cave, it's a man-made construct. It's also amazing how the quarries were done when they were mined by hand, where those columns appear is just where the stronger part of the stone is. So the order and the logic is just provided by the earth. The people were just carving out stones, and where something became like hard, difficult to work with, to craft, they just let it, give it the form of a column, and continue. So that's the logic, and that's the beauty of it.
But this was a ruin. It was full of pigeon excrements. It was full of dead animals, pieces of cars. The level of earth you couldn't see. Nothing here was totally dark. So we came here and we saw the space. We analyzed everything, and the three of us agreed. We said, it has a huge potential.
I mean, we already loved what we could see, but there was so much hidden.
Yeah.
There was so much hidden under, earth and soil that had been eroded and that was covering a lot of the stone. So much hidden under the mold, the dirt. So much hidden into darkness because we couldn't really penetrate the quarry fully. We could just access those places that were fed by natural light. But these are very deep places. So just with what we were able to see, we were already enamored, but I don't think we imagined fully what this has become, just after taking care of it. We named this project 𝘐𝘮𝑡erra. Yeah, 𝘐𝘮𝑡erra means the house of the earth. And actually, when we named it like that, we didn't understand the degree to which this name is really key to the space and to the project, because it is the house of the earth. And this reminds us that it comes with its own rules, and this is very important to understand the project and how we think about it. The experience we had in the quarry in Galicia, we had a direct contact with matter and with landscape and how landscapes are transformed by our decisions and our action. What happens to landscape with these extraction processes? At the time, we decided to use the leftover material of the quarry, so we already had a different approach to how to use that material. But we always thought about, what happens after to these places, because as you are extracting, you're building space. But maybe this stayed with us, and when we found this place, it connected with those thoughts and those reflections.
This was built following the logic of the stone, following the logic of efficient human performance of how to extract and how to remove slowly but very precisely each of these stone pieces. Ultimately, there's an order that beats in this space, but there's no a very well-defined geometry. There's no strict orthogonality. There's no planes. The complexity of the matter and the space is enriched by this lack of identifiable geometries. This is a very contemporary statement, no? That getting rid of the given standards, no? Including geometry, including linear, planar figures that are recognizable. So we thought that through this very archaic sense of space, we were connecting with a very contemporary, complex.
This was never built or excavated, designed to be architecture. And it was clear when we found it, and this is probably why nobody did anything with it before. Here, the challenge was how to preserve the character, how to add the minimum to make it into architecture. And this has to do, in the end, with bringing light, bringing air, working with the earth as a material. It's been very educational also for us to see how with very small actions like cleaning the stone and recovering its natural color, for it to bounce light into the space, to see how the space is transformed.
Like these screens that diffuse the light to create atmospheric sense of inside versus the outside, even though there's acoustic and thermal transparency, but the light is different. So that creates the ambiental conditions to inhabit it. The air, the flow of air, fundamental. We just favored that flow of air. A little bit of hygiene, just cleaning up water and soap, washing up the walls and the ceilings and the floor. That creates a difference between the outside and the inside. So these very anthropological actions determine the fundamental principles of architecture. The idea of having rooms or entries or windows, none of this do exist in Canterra. Canterra is landscape. But by altering these ambiental, phenomenological, and mathematical conditions, we create the idea of a home. To live means to develop your activities, the human activities, stay, be, work, and share. So when we come here, we do all that activity, but we try to subdue to the conditions of Canterra. We do not have a kitchen as in an apartment, but we do have, a camping fire, and we have some deposited water, and we take care of our waste, in an ecological way. The conceptual and physical transformation of this space was when we cut the first and last stone. We wanted, because it was going to be the first and the last stone of the space, to celebrate as an artistic performance that event with all its necessity. So we cut that hole, that chimney that was going to clean up the space just by allowing the air to flow. It was going to illuminate it. And also it was going to contain the object, the symbol, this secret garden that contains a stone and an olive tree. This is the symbol, exposed to the light of our culture, of the Mediterranean. So this very artistic performance physical and metaphysical event celebrated the birth of architecture, the transformation from a landscape into a piece of architecture. And we started working in taking care of it, cleaning it up, discovering it, interpreting it, getting to know it, and getting us to be part of it. So it took us 2-3 years and it's an ongoing project. It took us another 20 years to really learn and enjoy through that journey. We do work. It's not office work in a desk. It's more experiential work that we sculpt or we paint or we do models or we just observe and learn. And that's work. And it's a very inspiring work that we put on our bodies and souls. And then in Madrid, in our fábrica, in our office, we try to infuse it to all the architecture that we are practicing.
For us, this is a very inspirational place. It's a place that we like to inhabit, to share personally, because it always takes like a couple of days to adjust, especially if you're coming from the comfort of your home in the city, where it seems that you have like endless supply of everything, water and light and all types of services. This is a space that you really need to adjust. You cannot dominate, you cannot domesticate fully. And I think this is very important, especially in the moment in which we are now, where I think it's becoming more and more evident around us impact of the climate crisis we are experiencing, to come here and become very aware of what we need, what we don't need. This space teaches us to behave differently and in more harmony with the environment. And as architects, this also has an incredible impact in other works that we are doing.
There was a place in Canterra where all the water was collected. It was the lowest place of all the drain system was. So this is the place where that spring water, natural water, arrives. And it's the place where we do collect our water and we can take a bath in it. It's not a swimming pool, it's a therma in a classic way. It's not exposed to the sun, so the water is mineral, it's conserved. We don't depurate it, we don't add chemicals. It's how ponds or thermae are collected through an impluvial system. It's irrigation. It comes from different traditions, the Roman engineering tradition or the Arab, more sophisticated in terms of the ditches and all the canals, and all the expression of the water. So having water in the earth is not only an experiential and extraordinary pleasure to combine life with these presences. It's also an engineering need, and we need to have a place where, when the storm comes, the water, we know it will be there. So this combination that is so architectonic is part of the experience of Canterra. Being in a contemporary world where energy is being rationalized, we are enjoying 20 degrees of free and fresh radiating geothermal cuts. Each of these planes is irradiating the temperature that makes the maximum comfort in a habitable space, without any use of energy or power, just by using the architecture of the earth as a source of energy and of flow of air, the presence of water as an humidification device. So all these fruits of nature, architecture has to use them appropriately.
Designing Canterra is an interpretation of the place. It's been a great journey to live and interpret and design and then also change things around. We feel a bit like nomads here, even as, not just as inhabitants, but as designers. When we came here and we did the 3D scan, on the plan we were saying, okay, it makes sense for this to be a more social space. It makes sense for this place to work or to interpret the environment. But then when you really come here and you experience these places, it's not just about the geometry of the place or the form of the space. It's about the experience of it. It's about how much light, how much humidity, how much ventilation or breeze there is. Also the different openings frame the landscape. So we made certain decisions when we've been experiencing the place for longer periods. We suddenly start changing things around. Being such a massive space, it is demanding a life that understands it and dances with it.
These pieces that make our life easier, I don't want to call them furniture, but they're like benches or plinths or cuts in the stone where we just lay off our stuff. We just use the architectural features, to become domesticated. And yeah, we just have slight touches of these elements that allow us to sit or to work on them.
Yeah, what we have learned is that Canterra, there are things that it accepts very well and others that it doesn't. And for instance, operations that have to do with the very nature of the space, quarrying, like carving, cutting. I think that the space accepts it very well. It's part of its own spirit. And then it accepts also very well light materials that are very different from the stony matter that's here. That's why we use these membranes, and also plastic membranes, because the textiles, because of the humidity, it's a problem. They can get moldy very easily. And we tried introducing textiles in the beginning, and we realized that this was very difficult to maintain. The metals, for instance, it's also a very different materiality. It allows us to create also pieces that we can move, or we introduce them in places where they complement the topographies of the stone. But it's always an exercise of trying to find special moments and just completing them to enable, a place to sit, a place to work, a place to eat, a place to sleep, a place to take a bath, and always trying to imagine what was there before. And we've also realized that with very few objects, we have everything we need to live with intimacy, to be alone in the space, or to have big gatherings with friends or with our collaborators, to have a meal in the space or to work. Because what's very unique, actually, it's just to be in this monumental space without being cluttered with a lot of things that we really don't need. This project in Menorca makes a lot of sense and takes a very deep meaning, in the sense in which it connects with the traditions of using the earth to build, but also excavating the earth for shelter. And so in the island you find natural caves, man-made, that have been used for centuries. For us, working with this history as background and contributing to it, it's very inspirational for us.
Canterra has the 𝘛𝘩𝘦 𝘈𝘠𝘂 a couple of 100 meters away. We are part of that. We are the last chain of that very, very long story.
Ancient constructions fascinate us in the way in which they create very monumental architecture, very spectacular architecture with little means. I think this is something that in our practice we always try to do. How can we create beauty? How can we really exploit the potential of materials and technologies, but with little means?
And all this tectonics is just pedra seca, dry stone, just putting stones on top of each other. No mortar, it's just gravity, what binds all this together. So this is the rooftop of a building of pretty much 3,000 years. And Canterra is right there. Just beside, you can see the cornice of Canterra. That cut that is perfectly integrated and hidden like a ditch in the landscape. Our practice has always been obsessed with finding hidden sources of beauty, of new and undiscovered places and objects and materialities. When we did the truffle, and this is almost 15 years ago, it was a shock what we had just created. It took, even for us, it took us a time to realize what was that, no? Because we were breaking all the rules that we were educated at about what is architecture. The notion of beauty, of order, of materiality. The same with Tippet rice. With Tippet rice, we knew first day, as a continuity with the truffle, that the architecture of the earth, that the land had to be honored just by subduing to its, its soul, its geological condition, its forms, that are pre-architectonical. So we were totally confident that we could not add a single geometrical line or something that looked like anything that could be like a building, no? And that was still architecture. It was the architecture of the landscape, or the architecture of the earth. So this was consequential of all those sensibilities that we had been harvesting and developing in our sensibilities. No? We totally loved this idea of planes that were materially raw and imperfect. Those wrinkled lines, those connections between the horizontal and the vertical, they were kind of continuity without determining, let's say, any identifiable order. So we were trained in this path of architecture, and we're now enhancing all those practices into our other projects. Yes. That could be the scenario. So this is an amphitheater with light entries that you can enter from here. And all this topography looks to this focal point where some kind of scenario could pop, like a crater.
It's easy to trace connections, I think, between Canterra and works like the Truffle, works like Tippet Rice Art Center. But you could also trace connections with works like 𝘊𝘠𝘭𝘶 in the sense that this was an industrial space. It was created with that logic. And like 𝘊𝘠𝘭𝘶, we never thought about it initially when we were seeing this space, but I'm sure it's just already part of our DNA, of how we think and how it connects with our way of seeing the world.
And also that we live in these experiments. Our Scorpion house is our house in Madrid, and the truffle is a little cabanon. So we understand architecture as life. Through 𝘐𝘮𝘮, we discovered that we have been working in this pursuit of the architecture of the earth since our first project. And with 𝘐𝘮𝘮, we've learned now, with this accumulated knowledge of the 25 years of practice, that everything is contained within this coffer of earth. We have all the engineering standards, all the atmospheric and spatial attributes that we really want to express through I would consider this already a movement, the natural expressionism that architecture should enhance, the idea of integrated human and natural sources.
Yeah, for us it's a temple, maybe something between a temple and a playground. We come here and it's restorative because we leave out a lot of the stuff that we realize we don't need. And at the same time, it really elevates creativity when we work here. I'm not sure what it is. I would love to know, because I think there's an emotional component, but there's also a physiological component of working in a space of this scale with the type of light and an atmosphere and silence, but also connection with nature. No, we are hearing the birds every day. There's something about that stimulates the body in a way that when we are working, it's really productive and exciting. And our plans is to find the way to, as Antón was saying, to make 𝘐𝘮𝘮 laboratory in a more kind of permanent way.
This place affects you in your way of thinking, and it inspires you a lot. So this is why all these structure of landscape projects, we do them here, because this place affects you in your way of thinking, and it inspires you a lot. You have to come here, you need to work here, you need to do a model here, and I can assure you that the model that you are going to do is not the same that the one that you would have done in an architectural atelier in Madrid.
In 𝘐𝘮𝘮, we work with our hands. We work sculpting the first raw ideas and models that after could become a project, or we just store it for a while and reread it in a few years. We think that the material world abstracted adds a lot more to an artistic event or architectural project, and we use 𝘐𝘮𝘮 as our laboratory. The need of an artist just to create, for the pleasure, for the hedonistic, for the need, like breathing, to create. Commissions and opportunities will come. But our life is to pursue that artistic vision and work for it, and opportunities will follow. That takes away all the uncertainties and all the everyday burdens of a profession. That's an early learning that I had from my dad, and I'm really grateful. My dad, he worked all the time. Every day of his life, in summer or in winter, every day of his life he worked. And I remember as a kid to be with him in 𝘠𝘩𝘭𝘶𝘮𝘮𝘬𝘮 𝘠𝘩𝘭𝘶, just recording night over night over night. One of his latest works, the partitas that Hilary Hahn did to my dad, a grander collaboration between Hilary and my dad. The partitas were, I think, one of the most important artistic works of my dad. And I would say one of his fundamental legacy masterpieces.
Oh, well, how many memories, this little book. This I did it for his 75th birthday as a surprise. I collect photos, which I had many photos always with Antón and Áurea. And I did a collection of them with photos with my wife in concerts. And I brought it to his house. He was surprised. And I call it Memories of a Friendship. Yeah, this. And friendship that is very long friendship, but it seems now is very short because he's not here anymore. When he was alive, he was like, we have all our life, still many years. Antón and Áurea for my wife and me, the four of us. So my wife as a singer also did songs that he wrote for her, some of them, and some adapt them. She's a mezzo. And then we went together to Manchester, we went to Helsinki, we went to Oviedo, to Valencia, to Mallorca, the places where she sang songs of Antón. And then it became a very close friendship, the four of us. So I wanted Antón to go on to the concert of Hilary in Valencia. I am her agent in Spain, so we went to the concert, yeah. And then after that, it was a natural thing that I will introduce and told Hilary, this is my friend, a great composer, Spanish, and this, good. And she just, boom, Antón, well, like if he was father or something to her.
Antón didn't speak much English, and Gonzalo was our translator. After I commissioned Antón to write an encore for my 27 encores, I realized that he had a very unique Spanish voice, and that was not present in the styles that I was gathering for this comprehensive project. That's when I actually really started having conversations with him. We were really in the same world. Eventually, I wound up at the house in Madrid, and I knew that their son, the architect, built it for them. But I really experienced the house as a family gathering place, the indoor-outdoor aspect, hours-long meals together translated by Gonzalo and his wife, Sandra, and just the social indoor-outdoor aspect was very impressive. Antón was very prolific, like really, really prolific with all kinds of writing. I saw that he had a gift for polyphony on violin. Very few people know how to navigate the four strings with complex multiphonic writing. I'd never commissioned a solo work before. I'd never commissioned a set of works from anyone. But I was just obsessed. I just, every time I saw him, every time we went for a post-concert dinner, I'd say, Antón, please, if you can, think about this. Think about 6 sonatas and partitas, or whatever version you want to do, but 6 works for solo violin like Bach, like 𝘰𝘭𝘶 did. Your gift for polyphony and your voice is so strong. And I want you to think about all the ideas you have and put them all into a big work. He would always say, I don't have enough things to say. I don't have enough music. What would I do with 6? I'd given up asking. The one day I didn't ask, we're out at dinner, and he's like, I have something for you. Hilary, I have something. And I was like, okay. And he pulls out the 6 partitas, complete. I said, what? He said, it's the 6 partitas. You wanted it. Here it is. And I was just amazed. I flipped through it. So much music. I had no idea he was working on it.
She came to do concert in Madrid when she stayed at home for 5 days. And they were there 6-7 hours a day working on one partita. It was a very important time to see the creation of that. To be part just as an observer and just to be there for me was very important.
It's been a real process for me, having worked with him. I consider him actually, as a grown-up, one of my grown-up teachers, because the way I had to rethink everything, learning these pieces, was something that changed how I played everything afterwards. It was a completely new way of looking at the phrases, looking at rhythm, looking at polyphony, looking at pacing. I just turned everything upside down and inside out. And then you have to play intuitively with his works.
I think they help each other very much. I put them together and there is a result, which was good for the future. It's very difficult partitas, because when I look at the score, I say, my God, you need a lot of time and ability and knowledge. Hilary plays, but not so many violinists play. She devoted long time to these partitas with Antón to understand what he wanted and what she could achieve. An instrument with 4 strings, just one bow, 4 strings, to get all the sounds that Antón was demanding.
My dad always said that when he was a kid, he wanted to be an architect. I remember with my father, we had a lot of conversations where we couldn't know if we were talking about architecture or if we were talking about music. The conversations were about space, about depth, about color, structure, order. All these fields, all these parameters, all these analytic perspectives are common in both disciplines. I think listening to music or being in a certain space are 2 very similar emotions that could captivate, that could touch deeply in your emotional and spiritual.
Composers are also architects because they're building a structure. The structure has frameworks and then empty spaces that are populated by the people who move into that space. Well, my metaphor with a new piece of music, for entering it, is like you have the piece of music, you have the score, no one has played it before, you have no idea what your relationship to it will be. You just kind of walk around the outside of it and you try to find an entrance. And when you find an entrance, then you open the next door that interests you and you just kind of explore it. And over time, you wind up exploring the whole building. But you need that first door to open into the piece. When I talk about the space in music, the space in interpretation, I'm talking about music, but I realize that it applies to a lot of other things as well. And when I'm thinking about Antón García-Abril, the composer, the space inside his music, I visualize the space inside Antón García-Abril, the son's architecture. The rawness, the interpretation, the approximation of natural rhythms, natural shapes, it's very much the same. When I worked with the composer, I would look at his score, even looking at his score. Things aren't where they're supposed to be, but you get the idea. Like, he would put a dynamic marking between 2 notes, and I'd say, Antón, where do I put it? And he'd say, why does she need to know exactly where it goes? It's in there, like wherever you want. Just play it here, play it there. By that point, it's mezzo forte. I don't know. And, he would also with accidentals, sharps, flats, naturals, he would know what note he wanted, but how he communicated it was impressionistic. And so it's this sort of precision, but playing a little bit loose and free with what you think precision is. Like in Cantera, I try to put my electric toothbrush down on the surface. It always falls over. There's no flat place anywhere. My face wash is in this direction. Lotion is here, and my toothbrush is like lying down somewhere else, all around the same sink. But it looks perfect. It's like, this is what a sink should look like. This is what this space is meant to be. And you have dust on you everywhere, but somehow it feels like you're in a photo shoot. Like everything I do, I feel like I'm in a movie. I feel like I'm watching some like scenario of life, but I'm also living it almost exactly. Without Antón the son writing a score or particularly basing his work off a score, it's exactly the psychology of his father in the scores that he was writing. And this expansion inside spaces where you have the rooms, you have the structures, but you have any number of ways to go. And the sense of, you look at it from the outside, it seems pretty straightforward, but the further inside you get, the more space you find in there, and the more space decisions are made. And things that look like they're kind of random are actually very well thought out. And the longer you spend with it, the more you start to see the logic and the freedom. So for me, that's really a psychological and a creative tie between the two, that you can't see music, but you can see that here. And then when Antón the father passed away, we all knew that he would have wanted us to continue the connection, but it was the pandemic. We were in the same area, but no one was hanging out. Everything was very closed in Massachusetts. And then last summer, I came here and it really clicked. So it was in Cantera that the next generation understanding and artistic exchange really clicked, because I was practicing. I was playing music in this space, and it was the first time I think they'd heard music in this space. And I knew that it sounded phenomenal. Like, the space is so musical. Every place you go in it has a different sound. Reminds me of concert halls, reminds me of recording studios, reminds me of cathedrals. I play pretty much everywhere, and there were references from everywhere in this space. Indoor-outdoor is a dream for a musician because we can't have our instruments outside, and often outside is very dead sounding, and we don't feel like we're projecting. But to play outdoors, just down here, that was where this started. So just down by the pool in that corridor where there's a roof, but it's outside, you hear all the sounds from outside, but they could hear it all the way there and all the way there.
When I saw Hilary performing one of the partitas right here, I couldn't help remembering the day my father visited the space. He was staying right there, and I'm sure he was feeling the connection between his music and this architecture.
The first time I was here and playing phrases of the partitas, some phrases of solo Bach, there was a sort of a recognition from all of us that something magical was happening, that the music made sense in the space and the space made sense in the music, and it brought the space to life in a different way. And I can't speak for anyone, but my feeling was that it was a sort of a mirror for the son's relationship to music. Like, maybe all of a sudden it was clear how much there was that connected the father's work and the son's work in an expressive and in a musical way. Not just growing up in the same house, not just creating the space for his father to write, but really the abstract conceptual inspiration behind making art at all. I feel like it was at that moment that there was a new kind of clarity in that realization.
I remember when Hilary was playing in this space, moving around. And Deborah and I, we looked to each other and we realized how perfect this place was for music. It was a very magical moment. It was really like the birth of this space.
After that, we started talking about like space and architecture and music and expression, and it became really like this understanding immediately. And that was what I believe Antón the father would have wanted and what he saw. He saw it. and we just had to make it happen. And I feel like Antón and 𝘊𝘢𝘢 would be so proud that we've continued and we've really bonded, all of us. So it's very special and it's really beautiful. I don't know why he particularly named one of the partitas Immensity, but I think there is an immensity to the space inside his writing that I've only recently started to understand.
Rítmico, espressivo, rítmico, espressivo, espressivo, rítmico, veloz, rítmico.
I have to say, in this space, in Cantera, this music makes so much sense. It's just the way the resonance picks up, the space works so well for that music, and the way the notes carry through over the course of the space, it just brings out the spirit of the music.
Brillante, rítmico, hasta el final. Entonces yo creo que todo lo que es ordenar el pulso de expresividad y el pulso dinámico y de fuerza, yo creo que salvo que tú pienses otra cosa que la aceptaré de mil amores, yo creo que está bien ordenado.
Except if you want to change something, but he thinks that this is all very well structured and well, this piece, nothing to change, nothing to...
Yeah, I think it's good structure. Yeah, we're good.
The structure.